Good afternoon. Welcome to Match Day. With us today is obviously my boss, Ian Barker, but also she leads our advocacy group. She's been a long time United Soccer Coaches member. She is an educator. She runs ODP out on the East, and she's just a tremendous person. So thank you so much, Sue, for being on. And we're going to share a little bit about social and emotional learning and a very appropriate topic for today, I think. So thank you for coming.
Thanks for those kind words, Vince.
Do you want me to start the slideshow?
Sure. So here's what we're going to talk about today, everyone. SEL, social emotional learning, is currently a very powerful educational movement in the US. And as an academic, I do work with classes, and one of my lessons for a 1-week period of time is this topic. So I by no means am an expert in this, but I'm drawn to it, and I've done limited research on the topic for my class in the graduate school at Stony Brook. And it constantly occurred to me how much of a carryover there can be between this topic and our coaching. So just to give you a little background, the basic foundation of this social emotional learning is belonging, connectiveness, awareness, and emotional safety. Now, if those things aren't appropriate discussions for today, I'm not sure what is. So I'm going to give you a little rundown of what this can do if you do research, if you do a study, if you look this information up. I will say to you, I say this to my class all the time, people will look to me for answers and will leave with more questions. And I encourage that. I encourage you to have more questions as you leave this 45-minute event, maybe 15 minutes event, hopefully, with me talking, it could be 45, and do your own research on the topic. So here are a few things to consider that you could get out of this little chat.
Be great.
So number one, you can improve your coach and player relationship. Number two, you can improve your relationship between your teammates. We're not there yet, Vince.
Sorry.
That's okay.
You just got to do this.
Okay.
Hey, I'm from Indiana, and we understand timeouts. So just
Okay.
we'll do a 20-second timeout. That's cool.
Okay. Okay. 10. Is this 10 seconds?
Yeah, we can do it. Yes, we can do it 10.
Right. Number 3, it's all about fostering life skills. And these skills have been proven to carry over through life. So a study was done recently with elementary school children, and they followed them through college, and it was proven that the foundation of some skills learned and fostered in elementary school carried all the way through to college. The last one here that I'm going to talk about is it has the ability to increase an individual's learning and retention of information. So if you can improve relationships, help somebody with their life skills that outside of soccer could help them in their everyday world, in a study of CEOs in this country, 90% selected that cooperation and communication was as important as the technical skills required for the job. So consider that if we are assisting young people with skills that they can take beyond the soccer field, I can only imagine that that's everyone's goal, is to help young people become better young people and more productive adults. So some other things that are very important, I think, it gives you the ability, the study of this work gives you the ability to relate and work with people who are different from you. It gives you a better sense of self-confidence. It helps you to solve and work through disagreements and problem solve areas. it helps you to understand your own emotion. How important is that in this time? And it helps you to deal with stress. So that's a little bit about what this can hopefully expose a coach to. And I just want to mention, part of this talk is about helping your players to refine these skills, to foster and cultivate these skills. But I think you're not really paying attention if you don't realize that we as adults and as coaches could also utilize a lot of this. So there is SEL for adults as well. So let me stop there and ask if there's any questions that are on the chat, or if there's anything that you're getting as feedback that people want me to review or concentrate on.
Ian, do you have the chat box, or do you want me
to?
Yeah,
so we have an audience which includes Julio from the Advocacy Council. We have Andrew from Central Virginia, Darush. We have Nicole Hercules. And we also have a gentleman, Mark, from London. So you're talking to an international audience, Sue. No questions, just people saying hi.
Okay, fantastic. So I'm going to give you a few scenarios that could be addressed through this work. So number one, you have a 10, 11, 12-year-old team, and you as a coach and everybody on your team is invited to one of the birthday parties of one of your players. That's a very positive thing. You've clearly developed trust. You clearly have a relationship. The other side of that is you don't even know that it's your player's birthday. And so you might have done a great job with your passing session. You might have done a phenomenal job with your dribbling and your shooting session. But how much do you know about your player? And does that player want to be a part of your life outside of the game, and do they want you to invite you more into their life? Number two, you get a question from your director of coaching about something that happened on your team that's not wonderful. The players know about it, the coach does not. The parents know about it, the coach does not. The director of coaching knows about it, the coach does not. There could be room for improvement there. And that room for improvement can come from this type of work.
Yeah.
Players who jump to other clubs, it can be argued they're looking for a higher level of competition, but they also could be looking for a higher level of trust and loyalty and connectiveness to their team, right? You have a player who's dealing with failure, stress, anxiety. I once had a player say to me at a national event, I don't want to go out on the field today. And I was shocked, because you're going to be seen by national staff. And I said to her, why not? And she kind of relayed back to me that she had already achieved a certain level, and the only place in her mind that she could go from there after today was down. And that was sad. So she clearly needs some work in that area. Overall, I think our goal is to create positive experiences for players. So, okay, so here's what we're going to talk about. So the first few core competencies for SEL are these three. Okay, so and there's going to be 5 total: self-management, self-awareness, responsible decision-making. So again, think about the concept that I'm going to manage myself. What does that mean? I'm going to teach, as a coach, a player, how to do a better job, hopefully, of managing himself or herself. Self-awareness. I'm going to help a player and hone skills for the player to be more self-aware. How important is that? And then responsible decision-making, where we're kind of in a category right now, and I'm going to read this to you. When a person engages with authenticity in their learning, they feel ownership over their learning. Their ability to make choices and take thoughtful action will 100% improve their personal trajectory. So what does that mean? I think we've learned this a long time ago with command style and problem solving types of ways to teach. But if you are out on a field and it's the last 5 minutes of a game and your players are acting independently, they're not working together. Maybe they're passing and shooting the way you taught them, but each player is working individually, not as a collective unit. It possibly is a reason that you didn't hone the skill of teammate cooperation, the connectivity of those players, right? And so when those players are empowered to make their own decisions, they will then get in the car when they go home, and when the parent says, "What did you do today?" they will say "I" instead of he or she, meaning the coach. They will refer to themselves as the ones that made the important decisions. And that's very important.
Yeah.
Here are two more: relationship skills and social awareness. So these are the 5 that we're going to look at today. So the first one, self-awareness. So in this, you can read what I've put up there, but the most important thing here is the ability to accurately assess your own strengths and weaknesses. So imagine if every player on your team had the ability to say, yes, I'm the best player on the team, I'm in the middle of the group right now, and I'm not at the top fitness-wise, technically. Imagine if every player on your team had the ability to self-assess at a high level. Their self-perception was accurate. They understood their own emotions when they had a problem during a game, yelling some other issue, right? They can recognize their own strengths and challenges. Imagine what you can do as a coach if your players have this self-awareness. Next, self-management. So here, this is the perspective with the ability to empathize with others and the ability to take in my own perspective about myself. I touched on this a minute ago. I'm happy and sad to say this at the same time. I know a lot of adults who do really well and don't do really well in this area. Right? So can I have an understanding of my own stress level? Can I have an understanding of my own self-discipline, my work ethic? Right? It's all about creating positive, consistent habits and trying to move the dial a little bit, incrementally, not one big, but incrementally, and move that dial a little bit every day. And the real key that I want to bring up here is you're not born with the ability to decrease your own stress, have great discipline, have a great work ethic. This is absolutely a skill that you can hone. This is absolutely something that can be fostered. This is absolutely something that you can control in your player's life in terms of putting them in an environment for learning.
So, Sue, can I just pause you there? Because can you go back one, if you don't mind? Yep. So, and maybe it's a quick answer. So the area of mindfulness, where would that fit? Would that fit in here, do you think? Because I read a study, I read it was a dissertation of a student, and he worked with the MIT women's team.
Yep.
And he used mindfulness practices, and they had the best season ever. And so I was just curious, and maybe you're getting to it, and I apologize.
No, that's okay. Yeah. I mean, I will talk in a little bit about a growth mindset, but I have kind of a list of little mini recommendations that I'm going to make, and I'll share one with you right now so people see where this is going, because I can imagine I'm giving you this information, and I can only imagine the next step is somebody saying, okay, you've convinced me. I can see the benefit. I know how to run a training session for dribbling. I know how to run a training session for shooting. How do I help the learning environment for my players with these? So one thing that I'll share with you that I do with every team that I coach, we have what I call the word of the day. And I'll take a team on a trip And the very first day I meet them, I'll say, everybody go around and say one word only of how you're feeling right now. And then we'll do it the next day, and then we'll do it the next day, and we'll do it the next day. Now, the social emotional learning implications there are sharing, listening, self-reflection, vulnerability, cooperation. That can't be more important. And what your hope is the first day of the trip, it's nervous, anxious, fearful, and the last day is excited, happy, right? And so you're teaching the player how to self-assess and capsulize it in just one word. And to be honest, this is something that I do remotely. I have my players send me their word for the day, and it allows that now, if they're not comfortable, they tell me something that they think I want to hear. Everything's great, coach. But every once in a while, I'll get somebody send something to me that says sad, disappointed, and they know I'm going to give them a phone call after that. They know that that's the next step. So it's almost them knowing there's a way to reach out to me. They know if they write down sad, unhappy, they're going to hear from me, right? And so again, it's just setting something up very simple. That's a self-reflection, being honest. And the more you do it, the more the players get in touch with it. So that's a simple way to teach mindfulness. Basically, mindfulness is I want my brain, and I use the heart. I want my brain and my heart to be where my feet are right now.
Yes.
And so can I assess my brain, what I'm thinking, and my heart, what that's feeling, put the two of those together. Some people can do the brain very easily. Some people can do the heart very easily. A lot of people have trouble with both.
Right.
And you'll see the types of players that you have when the ones that are giving you all the heart answers and the ones that are giving you all the brain answers. It's really quite interesting.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. So sorry, I didn't mean to stop you. So
No.
You can progress.
Okay, so social awareness. So at the end I'm going to have a little quiz. So if you're walking around, you might want to grab a piece of paper and a pencil. So this is really important, right? It's perspective on what's happening for the group and not only to me. It's empathy of others. It's appreciating difference. So say hypothetically, you have a player on your team who has a religious background that they can't make a game on Sunday because of a religious event that their family has to go to, right? And and you can take that scenario and change it to 1,000 things. There are players who, if they don't understand that religion, or if they don't understand the importance of that to someone, maybe it's Greek Orthodox, then they're not going to have a good appreciation for that difference, and there are going to be problems. So by teaching this and helping to hone these skills, an example might be everybody share differences in your life, how you might be different from others. Now, again, that's a scary thing, but as the players share those, they become more familiar with them. It gets better. Doing this work on the day that this event happens doesn't help the situation.
Right.
You have to tee it up, right? So the key to this is really respecting everyone. Next is relationship skills. And again, I can't talk enough about this, right? So how do you develop a better relationship of all the players? I'll tell you something that I do. Every year I have my players basically be their own coach from beginning to end. So they come up with the strategy for the game. They decide where they're going to play. They decide what formation they're going to play. At the end of the game, we do something called shout outs. So I can't talk about myself, but I might say, did you see Vince play in the back today? It was so good because he stopped every shot. And as the goalkeeper, I love that, right? So I'm bragging about somebody, and I'm lifting them up. And it's great that they develop these things tactically and technically and sometimes I'm embarrassed because they do a better job than I think I would have in that moment. But the bottom line is it's not what they come up with, it's how they come up with it. right? And you're always going to have, if you take 100% of your players, the top 25% are going to take it and run with it. And then the next 25 are going to kind of have an idea and want to say what they think, but they're not going to try to overshadow the top kids.
Right.
The next group will follow the first two groups, and the fourth group doesn't care what you do. they're just going to be there, right? So the key when you do this type of work is to take who you think is one member from each group and put them in the same little pod or cluster. That's a way that you as a coach are aware of the learning and then the communication on your team.
Yeah.
Right. So responsible decision making. If I had to pick, I'm not sure I could pick which one of these is more important. So I'm talking to coaches. You're helping your players to identify problems, analyze the solutions, solve the problem on the field, solve the problem themselves, reflect on themselves or the team, and have good ethics and sportsmanship. Again, helping them to get to these points is going to allow your team to become greater than the sum of the individual parts. That's what's going to happen. Okay, so here's the participation part. Make a list. On the one side, put social skills. On the other side, put emotional skills. And think of some social skills you would want your team to hone. You would want to foster for your team. You would want them to learn and get to a greater degree of ability. What are some emotional skills that you would want your team to work on? Things that you would want to create an environment for your team to work on some emotional skills. So think of some things, just think of your team from everything that we've talked about right now. Think of some areas that would you think if you worked on these, and I'm going to say this again, you can't change the world in a day, but I would recommend you take one of each of these and do it in an online learning platform right now. I mean, the players are getting a lot of, and I'm not against this in any way, but a lot of running between the cones, juggling, dribbling. There's so much work that can be done in this area remotely. And it'll make and you won't have time for it on the field, but now there's a lot of time for the players to work on this. So
yeah, definitely now. You're right. Yeah.
So here are some that I'm working on. So maybe we have some of the same. And understanding that social skills include others. So helping your players understand how to share, how to listen. So someone told me this once and I've always loved it. There's a difference between listening and waiting to speak. If you're speaking and I'm just waiting until you're finished so I get a chance to speak, I'm not really listening. So listening and hearing, awareness of others, saying what needs to be said is one of my favorites. I'm from New York. We're described as being assertive, but
direct, yes.
Direct, but it is absolutely a social skill that people will appreciate and benefit from if you learn how to say what needs to be said. And the key to this is without hurting anyone. Can you say what needs to be said without hurting anyone, including yourself? That's a special skill.
Interesting. Yeah.
Emotional skills. Are you a problem solver? This is where the growth mindset comes in.
Yep.
Controlling yourself, your identity. It's all about how you identify and do you create habits that help you to consistently get better incrementally every day in an area where this is a positive attribute for your identity. So I'm a mother. Every day I try to create a schedule to better help my kids. I don't know, maybe we should do a webinar on
Let's do that.
Parents who've become teachers of 7th grade, right? But I make it a point to reflect every day on how do I become a little bit better at being a teacher in my own home, which I'm not used to with my own children, which is a whole other ball game, right? That I'm getting used to. And so how do I do that? Because that's important to me. And I want to create positive habits in order to align that with what my goal is.
Yeah. And you know, you mentioned about, you know, you're teaching your own kids right now in your environment, but there are a lot of and there might be some DOCs on this webinar that view this later and currently, but a lot of questions when I used to be when I was a state DOC of Indiana, and I go around, I do these youth modules, and I'd have parent coaches, right? Yep. And they're like, how do you coach your own kid? Yeah. And so the nuggets that you just provided, every club should relay that to their parent volunteers. Just work on a little bit every day, and you'll make it a positive experience for them, because right. A lot of parents, they want to coach, they want to help, but boy, when it's your own child, I say it to my son on a constant basis. I'm talking to you as your mom now. I'm talking to you as your coach now. It's confusing to him. Oh, I remember those talks. Yes, very, very much so.
Okay, so here are some actual action items for people. These are things that I do that I enjoy. And people, I've put my email address up here if people want to contact me. So the first one is my favorite. It's a learner autobiography. So the learner writes an autobiography on how he or she learns best.
Very good.
And we'll share that with the coach. And lots of things can come out of that. They might not be able to describe, I'm an auditory learner, I'm a tactile learner, I'm a visual learner. But if they write it up, you will be able to pull that out, right? So some don't like to be isolated, some like to be in a group, et cetera, et cetera. So, and the better that they get at it, you can keep updating it every 30 days or so they start to think about it as they go through. So that is absolutely my favorite. My second one is a shared agreement. And this is where the players come up with something that they're sharing. For older players, it could be what they think are the core values. For younger players, it can be how they want their team to be run, right? So anything that the players come up with on their own, and then they share with you. It doesn't come from you to them. It goes from them to you. And again, the key here is the collaboration, the teamwork. I can tell you with my teams, I have, after games, we'll take groups and put them together, and they'll create SMART goals for the next game. And there'll be groups of 3, and they'll have to come up with one collaborative goal or key from the last game or key for the next game, write them down, and we'll have maybe 10, and then the team will have to vote on the top 3 or 4. So they want to get in that top 3 or 4. So it's competitive, but it's also collaborative. It's very positive.
That's fantastic. Yes.
My next is a reflection journal. I'm very big on this. So it a little bit is like the word of the day, but you can tee that up, and they can share the reflection journal with you. They can share it with no one. They can share it with each other. So it can be as simple as saying, I play my best when. I play my best when my parents aren't watching. I play my best when I play in this position. I play my best when, right? And you can decide as a coach how you want that to be shared. Again, it can be with no one. It could be just the person writing to themselves and then reviewing it, or it could be something that they share as a team or gives you insight. My last one that I also like a lot is I do scenarios, and they're not all soccer scenarios.
Right.
So it's, the best player on our team doesn't show up for 4 weeks of practice. Does she start in the next game? And it's really interesting to see what comes out of that, right? You can create any kind of scenarios because at the end of the day, what are we looking for? The players know. They want loyalty. They want good teammates. It doesn't necessarily be the most talented person, is always the best teammate. And sometimes you have somebody going in a wrong direction and you create this scenario and the players say, no, we don't want that person to start in a kind of backdoor way. That person doesn't do that behavior.
Yeah.
So those are just some small examples of things that I do. There are literally thousands, but those are some things that I do that help me inform the work that I'm doing with this topic and my team.
No, that's fantastic. Everything you shared, by the way, is we talked before we came on the air about creating like legacy type content, and this is legacy content right here, because the information that you shared, just every coach should hear. So at every level. So thank you, Coach Barker.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I probably get invited to a lot of weddings of my former Division III athletes because we won games. I think it's easier to have it's when you're winning, it's good too. But I think the reason I get invited was because of some of these things, intentional, unintentional, and absolutely attending the weddings is much more valuable now than winning the games was at the time. But you can't know that when you're young and you're in the competitive environment. But I do think it's not passe to report to younger coaches that at the end of the day, it's the human interactions that stay with you much, much longer than the wins and losses.
Yes. Yep.
Yes. I mean, I make it a point to say every player on my team's name every practice, every single player. Yep. And I also make it a point that at the beginning of practice, before it begins, and at the end of practice, I pick 2 players a day and I talk to them about something that has nothing to do with soccer.
Yeah.
And so those are like 2 really small things that I just layer in. You know, Charlie, how's your dog? Bobby, how's that? Right. So if I do 2 a day, I can get through my whole team in, about a week, and then I start all over again. Yeah. And it's such a small thing, but it makes a big difference.
Oh, huge. I did jersey check-in days. So if they wore like number 22 during the month of September, or sorry, if they were born they're wearing number 22, then on the 22nd of September, varsity and JV, we would do exactly what you're doing, right? Just talk 5 minutes, 10 minutes. So they love those meetings because, it's just, let's just talk and let's just, connect with them as people. And, there's a great TED Talk that it's my favorite. It's the Rita Pearson TED Talk. And if any of you on the air ever gets a chance, you should watch it multiple times because there's so many things throughout the 8 minutes that are in it. And basically it's just being a champion for a child, and every child deserves a champion. And that's really what, in my opinion, the core of this message is that being a champion for them. But outstanding information. Coach Barker, I'll leave it with you, and then we'll wrap it up.
Sue, thank you very much. We appreciate that you're trying to teach and coach and run a East Region Girls ODP. There's a lot of stuff up in the air. But it's great to see you in person, talk to you in person, not just over the phone. And thank you so much for the half hour. Lots of really positive comments. Yes. Russell, Julio, Nicole, Mark from London, Ian from Seattle. So we really appreciate it, and we'll get you back on here because I think we might be doing these for a couple more weeks yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you could definitely do an SEL too.
No, that's great. Let's do it. And then, so tomorrow we have 2 coaches from Augsburg University. Is that correct?
Augsburg College. Yep. Augsburg College in Minneapolis.
I apologize. And then Dan Wogue will be on at 4:00 Eastern time tomorrow. So
who was an attendee today and said hello, Sue, by the way. Yeah. So Dan's on and listening to you.
Looking forward to it.
Awesome.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Sue. Bye-bye, everybody.